All right, hi everybody. It's Nolan. I said that I would provide a video basically explaining this ordinance that the RISE board is sending to the commissioners. The RISE board sent an email, or RJL Solutions or whatever sent an email saying, "Hey, we need this added. To Monday's meeting to the commissioners, and that was Wednesday or Tuesday night or something, and I think it was Wednesday actually, and they got the proposal then, and they're gonna go over it on Monday. They technically shouldn't have been put onto the commissioners meeting, but they were given approval by 2 out of the 3 commissioners. I did not have. I've been working at this all day. It's a really dense document, and I didn't have a lot of time. They didn't give us a lot of time, but I want to make sure everybody understands it. So this is going to be kind of disorganized. I'm very tired. I'm honestly really angry. So I'm going to apologize if this is confusing at times. I get confused sometimes. I'm not an attorney, but I have gone over this and over this and over this, so I can tell you this, that the interpretations that I'm going to give you are not... I got this document figured out. So I've got my notes, which are all shorthand. So if you see me squinting and stuff, it's because I'm trying to read my own writing. I have the actual ordinance, which is 18 pages for the whole thing. I mean, that's the ordinance itself. I think it's 12 pages, but it's an 18-page document. And I have some notes here on my laptop that I'm going to refer to, mostly just because there were specific sections in this. It's kind of hard to turn to them immediately and find them. There's no page numbers in this thing, nothing. So I went ahead and put them in this kind of outline thing. So this ordinance would be our UDO for data centers in the RISE. So I'm going to start by explaining that what this functionally does is it creates something called a data center overlay district. So that's where they can build the data centers. And that covers effectively the entire Vermillion RISE megapark. So, but inside that overlay, it is a data center is permitted by right use. So that means it's right here. And this is important. This is basically the crux of this entire ordinance. So I'm getting right to that. But it says in section E, a data center project subject to this section is a permitted use by right within the data center overlay district upon issuance of a written approval by the reuse authority under this subsection, confirming compliance with the standards of subsection D and issuance of an improvement location permit by the zoning administrator, and no special exception, variance, rezoning, or discretionary approval by the Plan Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals, or Board of Commissioners is required. They kind of balked at Stephanie yesterday at the meeting when she said, I think you're trying to bypass, I'm worried you're going to try to bypass the APC. They're bypassing the APC. That is plain language. So once this ordinance is adopted, the Area Plan Commission and the Board of Commissioners get no yes or no vote on data center projects in the RISE. The RISE board reviews the application and issues written approval, and then the county zoning administrator would issue the permit in, they call it a ministerial capacity. So that's a rubber stamp. And it specifically says there's no rechecking standards or added conditions. They go on to say that essentially, if the county zoning administrator fails to rubber stamp, so if they don't want to rubber stamp it and they say I can't stamp that, it's approved anyway. The choice is stamp it for approval or don't stamp it. We're still going to approve it. That's not exaggeration. That's actually what's in the ordinance, and I will get into that later. But I'm giving the Cliff Notes version for anybody that needs it. The commissioners, right now, they're accountable to us, and the RISE is accountable to the commissioners. But if the commissioners send this to the APC, they're saying they're giving away our voice. They're giving away their power and our voice in any data center proposal. They're making the RISE board accountable to no one, overseen by no one. Okay, and here's why this matters. They're trying to tell you like, oh no, well, we're going to just vote to send it to the APC, the Area Plan Commission. They send it to the Area Plan Commission. The Area Plan Commission goes, this is a nightmare. And they make all these changes and they give it back to the commissioners. They only need 2 votes to approve. They seem to consistently be getting 2 votes. And the commissioners can say, well, I like what you did here, but I think we're going to just go with the original document that we sent you. They cannot send this to the APC. If they send this to the APC and the APC sends it back to the commissioners are just going to approve it. They're going to approve the original thing. So, or they could approve it. I'm sorry. The commissioners could approve it, and I don't think that we should put ourselves in that precarious of a position. There's no reason to. Okay, who controls the approval process? This is going to be a theme throughout this entire ordinance. The reuse authority / RISE board, they own the land, they own and operate the water and the wastewater and the gas, power, the natural gas systems. Under this ordinance, they're also the primary decision makers on whether a data center meets the standards, including how much water it can take. So it's a structural conflict. It's a structural conflict of roles. So the entity that benefits from the provision of the utilities is also the gatekeeper for those projects. This kind of goes to transparency and accountability. We've talked about a lack of transparency with the RISE board, their day-to-day operations. They don't answer questions ever. It's always, I don't know. It's like sort of, it's like pulling teeth to get them to answer any question, no matter how mundane the question is, and they refuse to divulge information that they're legally kind of required to. I'm just using this as an example, but I've heard multiple people ask, what are you paying the executive director of the RISE board? And they won't answer the question. Legally, they're required to. He's a public servant. It's very frustrating. Right now, major land use decisions are going through the Area Planning Commission and the Board of Commissioners. All of the hearings on those are public, agendas are posted, and residents speak and ask questions before the vote is taken. This ordinance eliminates discretionary public process for data centers. The reuse authority handles the technical review that they're required to do. They issue the written approval. But the public's out. The public review is basically gone under this. The ordinance requires certain reports and technical studies be publicly posted, but the decision making is entirely shifted to the RISE board, so it doesn't really matter. Again, the zoning administrator just rubber stamps everything. Now, when they do a technical report for a data center, they keep calling them an applicant so if you hear me say applicant, I'm talking about a data center. But the commissioners, the county commissioners, they get to check consistency with a technical report about a data center. They have 15 business days to do that. And if they don't do that within the 15 business days, it's approved. So there's no full public hearing on the merits of a project at all, and transparency and accountability are gone. Additionally, if the commissioners, and this is I think just absurd, if the commissioners find a discrepancy and they report it to the RISE board, the final decision remains solely with the RISE board about whether or not they feel like it's been taken care of to satisfaction, the discrepancy. So they could continue having the discrepancy. I'm not saying that they would, but they could continue having that discrepancy, they could continue having that discrepancy, and there would be nobody to enforce that. The reuse, you could say, well, it's corrected to my satisfaction anyway, and that's it. They get into setbacks, so how close the data center could be to homes, right? And that's section D of this, which is one of the weakest sections in this, in my opinion. But section D, it says the setback from homes is 1,000 feet. They call it a residential receptor. A residential receptor is a residential lot. So 1,000 feet. And then for schools, churches, and hospitals and daycare facilities, it's 1,500 feet. That's not a particularly generous setback. A lot of communities have higher setbacks than that. In the proposal that I gave, which was, again, it was just a guideline. It was intended to be a helpful thing for writing a UDO that's conscientious of the community and also of job creation and things. I recommended 2,000 feet as a minimum. But anyone within a half mile to a mile of that property line is going to be within this sort of noise, light, and traffic impact zone. So you're going to be hearing it, you're going to be seeing it. The traffic's going to affect you, everything's going to affect you. Also in section D, they outline the noise standards, which sets the limits. And I'll go down here and read the actual language here. It sets the limits where the boundary line is adjacent to a residential receptor, 55 decibels A-weighted between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. and 45 decibels A-weighted between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. A-weighted decibels, or A-weight decibels, that's a measurement of how human beings can, basically hear sound in high and medium range frequencies. That's all that is. So, and this is not a great example, but 45 decibels, that's about what I'm talking right now in a pretty calm, but still audible voice, or like a noisy refrigerator where they buzz. It's about 45 decibels. And 55 decibels is like if I were projecting a little bit my voice, or like a light but very steady traffic. So those are the nighttime and daytime limits, but it's constant. And specifically in the noise standards section, it does not address low frequency noise, infrasound, or I don't know if anyone's read the articles or watched the videos about the hum. They call it just the hum. That's what they're referring to as low frequency and infrasound. It's caused by data center cooling systems and generators. That's just not there. There's absolutely nothing in there about it. Low frequency energy travels further. It goes through walls and windows more easily than A-weight decibels. They aren't registered on standard A-weight decibel meters. There's no limit on ground vibration. So, prolonged exposure to low frequency noise in humans, you're getting disturbed sleep, chronic headaches, feelings of pressure, stress. Pets and livestock, animals of any kind are generally more sensitive to this than human beings. So cattle, horses, farm animals, increased stress, reduced weight gain, behavioral changes, stillbirth, all from sort of chronic low frequency noise. So it's not underregulated, it's just not regulated at all. When we get into water, I'm very disappointed because that's been talked about over and over and over again at all of these meetings and with the commissioners and with the RISE board, with the council. I mean, we've been going to these meetings. The ordinance allows open loop or closed loop. In fact, it requires more. You have to jump through more hoops to use a closed loop system. You have to provide all this extra stuff, but open loop is fine. Now, open loop is the one that, open loop evaporative cooling is the stuff that of nightmares. They're gonna burn 70% of the water they draw up is just gonna evaporate. They're pulling from the groundwater, right? If you take out more than you put back, eventually you're gonna run out. I'm not saying that the aquifer is gonna run out, but people's wells are. People's wells are. That's just the way that works. So they have basically open season on whatever kind of cooling system they want, but it's harder to use a closed loop system. There's no requirement for waterless cooling. I've recommended to anyone that would listen a PFAS-free dielectric liquid cooling in a closed loop with a secondary air-cooled loop. There's no water, there's no forever chemicals, there's no blowdown, and whenever they do need to sort of, blow down the lines, and I use air quotes, blow down the lines, it has to go into, it has to be handled a specific way. There's already really strict environmental standards for handling that material, and it's taken to a special recycling center. So that's possible, but they don't give any consideration to that at all. The water comes from the reuse authority systems. There's no private wells allowed, so they can't dig their own well or provide their own water. It's got to be the reuse authority. The reuse authority commissions a master water resource study, and that sets a sustainable allocation capacity. That's, again, it's determined by the RISE board. It's enforced by the RISE board. It's overseen by the RISE board. No one oversees the RISE board. If the project stays under the number for the sustainable allocation capacity, which is 25% of the total water that they're allowed to use, then the RISE allocates all that water without doing a new hydrogeological study from the applicant. Basically, any incoming data center doesn't have to provide any kind of independent review of their water use at all. It's at the discretion of the reuse authority. Also in section D, the language about small residential wells. Again, this is something that we've talked about. This is something that people have literally been in tears at these meetings about. And they said they were listening to us. But they go out of their way to make sure that people whose wells get damaged get absolutely no protection and no compensation. It says indemnification of the reuse authority. So indemnification would be like reimbursal. Indemnification of the reuse authority for claims under Indiana Code 14-25-4 or any successor statute providing a remedy to owners of small capacity wells proportional to the applicant's share of the reuse authority's total data center allocations then in effect. So if your well goes dry or gets contaminated or collapses and you file a claim, right, because there are laws to protect you, if you file that claim, the data center reimburses the reuse authority. There's absolutely no guarantee or obligation from the data center to you as the well owner. This is a protection. What they do protect in this is a backstop for the rise, and not for the citizens or the farmers whose well dries or they collapses or they get poisoned or they get cancer. The rise, we can't sue them. We can't really do anything at all. There's nothing for us. So there's absolutely no protection for us, just for the RISE board. Additionally, because they included the way that they included it makes it kind of seem like they know they're going to drain our wells. They know that's going to happen. So they're not including protections for us. They're including protections for them. It does nothing for us. The language in that section does absolutely nothing for anyone with a well. It condemns them. Lot coverage is also in that section. Lot coverage is confusing, or it is to me, but it's really important actually to farmers on adjacent lots and things. It can cause flooding and things, but they set their max lot coverage. These are impervious surfaces, so concrete, gravel pads, the building itself, equipment can be an impervious surface. It's any surface that rainwater doesn't penetrate, at 90%. 90%, and they can use the entire rise if they wanted to. And in fact, they set limits for like height and things like that, but the overall size of a data center, they literally say no limit whatsoever. There's no limit on the size of a data center in Vermillion. No limit on the size of it. Go as big as you want. So that's not... So 90% of up to the entire RISE board, or the entire RISE park, there's no permeable surface. There's no infiltration for rainwater. So for farmers, that means anyone with land adjacent to the RISE, but especially farmers, you're going to get standing water. You're going to lose field days. You're going to have delayed planning. You're going to get damage to your drainage system that you already have. You're going to see the erosion and loss of topsoil, chemical runoff. So it's not just, the rainwater runoff going over the tops of these impervious surfaces that have chemicals and heavy metals and things on them that they carry then and put into your field. Also, the water pushes out from your field the things that you want, the fertilizers and the pesticides and things. That's going to run off too. You're also going to see highly compressed soil. It's going to compress the soil. So because the weight of the water on there is eventually it's going to sink down. It's going to compress the soil. You're going to have clay-like soil that's going to have to be monitored, remediated. The soil structure over time is going to be destroyed. We've talked a lot about forever chemicals, or PFAS. We've talked to them over and over again. This is what is making people really, really sick. This is what poisons your groundwater. Not just that. I mean, there's concentrated nitrates and thing. It's all farmland. And they do say, it has to go through our water treatment facility. You're not removing forever chemicals in your water treatment facility. They're forever chemicals. Okay. There's no language requiring PFAS-free coolants, banning PFAS foam for firefighting. There's no disclosure of PFAS use or setting any standards for chemicals used in data center cooling systems or related equipment. So PFAS, these forever chemicals, they never break down. These are chemicals that do not ever break down. So they accumulate. They accumulate in the soil, they accumulate in the groundwater, and they accumulate in the human body. They're linked to cancers, immune system damage, reproductive health issues, all kinds of problems. That's been brought to the rise many, many times. Groundwater contamination from industrial coolants. So anyone who relies on private wells, farmers who rely on clean water for crops and livestock, this isn't going to require PFAS-free cooling systems or dielectric fluids. It does not ban or restrict PFAS fire suppression chemicals. It does not call for disclosure of PFAS chemicals. It does not call for testing, monitoring, or remediation standards for PFAS in soil or groundwater, and it doesn't require liability or cleanup specific to PFAS. They get into lighting. That's honestly, it's not so bad. The lighting, full cutoff, downward facing fixtures. That's good. But there isn't a single requirement for red or amber spectrum lighting, which would have been simple. There's nothing requiring red or amber spectrum lighting for the Indiana bat, which we've talked about at every meeting. The Indiana brown bat is that 1,700 acre parcel of land is protected. It's a protected habitat. It's an endangered animal that I think we should be really proud to have in our county. I am. Between the noise and the lights, that affects animals. That specifically with the bat, it affects their roosting habits and their flight patterns and things. It creates a lot of problems for the bat. You're going to see that population harmed potentially without those considerations. Decommissioning. Yesterday at the meeting, the question was asked if there are bonds or any guarantees for decommissioning, and the response from board member J.P. Ream was, there's a decommissioning section. So the short answer to the question that was asked yesterday is bonds or guarantees for cleanup when a company leaves is entirely left to the terms of their individual lease or something called a community enhancement agreement, but it's not baked into the ordinance. So it's determined by the applicant who's leaving, the applicant being, again, a data center, whoever's leaving, and whatever representative of the RISE board, no one else is there. So they just sort of hash that out. It says they'll hash that out. They need to have a plan, but they're going to make it up basically at the time, case by case. So they might be required to clean up. They might not. They might enter into a community enhancement agreement where they, build a basketball court and then we have to live with the shell. I mean, I don't know, but it's too vague. As for power generation, again, this is another big one that we talked about over and over and over again. And so they allow primary on-site generation, so gas turbines and reciprocating engines, and that's called accessory use. Gas-fired equipment has to use the RISE's natural gas system, but it doesn't require any data center to generate 100% of its own power, and it allows for, and I think it even specifically says, I may be wrong, it even specifically says you can connect to the public utility. So they can just connect to the residential grid, which is what we've repeatedly said we don't want, and they've said, oh no, if our bills will go up, we're not voting for it. Well, they're voting for it now. We're going to have higher residential electric rates, disrupt and destabilize our power grid. It does absolutely nothing to prevent our bills increasing or our grid being damaged. So they've said over and over they won't do anything to harm this community. They're I have kids and grandkids, and I want them to, I'm doing this because I want them to be able to live here. I want them to be able to work here. Now, I've gone through this whole section. I haven't said anything about job numbers because there's nothing in there about job numbers, but okay, yeah, they're not requiring anything for jobs as this is written. Nothing in there. So that's what they say, but the document itself, there's no independent oversight or responsibility to the public. It allows for and in a way encourages the absolute most water intensive cooling possible. Our wells are protected only as indemnity to the reuse authority, so there's nothing coming to the well owner. There's nothing guaranteed anyway. Nothing even written in there, so they could say, "Oh, well, we would," but no, you wouldn't. Not necessarily. You don't have to. Financial decommissioning guarantees aren't in the ordinance at all, and the data center can use our power grid. That's all stuff that I'm very frustrated. That's all stuff that we have said repeatedly and repeatedly, and I don't see really much. The light being faced downward with full cutoff, I suppose, is good, but that's not. We asked for all these things and they did the opposite. So why were we talking? Okay, now I'm going to get into the actual thing. I'm going to try to be calm and thorough. They talk about the resolution, which is the resolution that was signed by Commissioner Peebles and Commissioner Donovan, basically saying the RISE is the place to build the data centers. And that's now what they're saying. They're kind of putting it on them, but well, remember, they're the ones that signed it and said this, but I'm pretty sure they were asked to sign that by the reuse authority. But I don't know that for sure, but if memory recalls, or if my memory serves, I don't believe that was just something they up and decided to do. Let's see here. So this is what the wording is like here. Indiana Code 36-7-30-13, including the public hearing required in connection therewith, is included in the Data Center Overlay District upon the effective date of a resolution of the Board of Commissioners approving the property's inclusion in the Data Center Overlay District, adopted at a public meeting and containing the legal description of the added property, provided that the added property is contiguous to the then existing data center overlay boundary, disregarding intervening public rights of way. Where a single resolution includes multiple parcels, the parcels are considered together, and a parcel satisfies this clause if it adjoins the then existing data center overlay district boundary, or adjoins, disregarding intervening public rights of way, another parcel included in the same resolution that satisfies this clause, or the added property is not contiguous to the then existing data center overlay district boundary, but lies within 2,500 feet of the then existing data center overlay district boundary, measured as the shortest straight line distance between the nearest point of the boundary of the added property and the nearest point of the then existing data center overlay district boundary. That's one sentence. It's confusing. Basically, it's saying that any new real estate purchased can be automatically part of the data center overlay boundary. So remember when we were asking about the land purchase in Bono? And they said they wanted to trade it for this section of the RISE that used to be a part of the RISE. They wouldn't tell us what it was for. In fact, the executive director of the RISE board, when he was meeting with the his little meet the community thing with the he did a little meet the community thing in Clinton where it was invite only. He ate breakfast. Everybody was eating breakfast and they could ask questions, and he did a little presentation, and someone asked about the land in Bono, and what that was about, and what they were going to use the land on the RISE board for, or on the edge of the RISE for when they get it. And he said, I can't tell you that. And they said, you can't or you won't. And he said, both. And we're also told it's not about a data center. Again, I don't know if this is true. I can only speculate because they don't tell us anything, but they lie to us a lot. I expect that they knew they were going to build a data center. I suspect they did. Okay, and the whole section. The whole section before about permitted uses, it says a data center facility existing and operating within the data center overlay district on the effective date of this section is deemed a permitted non-conforming use and may continue to operate without an improvement location permit under this section and the standards of subsection D. This is weird to me, and I'm not an attorney, it might be standard, but that means if a data center is built before this before this UDO is adopted, that it doesn't apply to them. But they don't have a data center there. Why? I don't know. I don't know if that's just like a thing that they put in these or not, but that seems confusing. Section D, the first thing that they get into is setbacks and separation. Their setbacks, the minimum front setback is 100 feet. The minimum side setback is 50 feet. So the data center campus can build up to just 100 feet from the road, 100 feet from 63 or any road adjoining the rise. Or 1,000 feet from someone's house. Additionally, though, I would say about the 1,000 feet from someone's house, that doesn't apply, or it doesn't seem like that applies to, they later have a thing where they say like 100 feet for extra power generation. So they're talking about like generators, diesel generators and things. They say that those sort of temporary power things, those can be 100 feet from any like adjoining lot. So the data center's 1,000 feet from you, but it kind of sounds like you could have giant diesel generators in a row 100 feet from your front door. They get into then the noise levels, which again, I went over that. It's not great, and the lack of regulation for any kind of low frequency sound is not acceptable. With water, that just broke my heart. Yeah, it says, while a master water resource study adopted under subsection B is currently under subsection D, the reuse authority shall include the allocation without requiring any hydrogeological study or other technical demonstration from the applicant. Again, that's the data center. So that does mean the data company won't have to do their own study to independently prove their water use and their effects. Again, I'm not seeing anything that's for us. I'm not seeing anything that's for us. There's nothing in here for us that I've seen. When they talk about the different studies, there's preparer qualifications. This is another strange section. And someone helped me with this, by the way. So I'm not, but the preparer shall not be an employee of the reuse authority, and for a project level study under subsection D shall not be an employee of the applicant. That's a good thing. That's like an outside party prepares the water studies or the, but they limit it to employees. So it could be your brother, could be your uncle, it could be your best friend. It could be your banker, could be whoever. You would think that it couldn't be an associate of anyone working at the Rise or an associate of anyone at the data center. That seems only fair. And more than that, how will the results of any study be proven and enforced when the only oversight is provided by the RISE board and there's no They're not beholden to anybody. We can't challenge their bias. We can't challenge their credentials because nobody has any oversight, according to this ordinance. Then it goes into this. It's their they can have aggregate open loop or evaporative cooling allocations within the data center overlay district that do not exceed 25% of the reuse authority's then current permitted withdrawal capacity. So 25% of whatever their daily withdrawal capacity is, which I think is like 40 something million gallons. Again, I don't want to say that for sure, but because I don't have that information right in front of me, but it's something it's in the millions. And they said, oh, we're not going to do that. But they could build as many facilities as they wanted to. So if they got 4 facilities chugging along doing 25% of the reuse authority's then current permitted withdrawal capacity, that's 100% of their withdrawal capacity between 4 data centers. It doesn't make any sense. And again, this is also where it goes to closed loop cooling. The open loop evaporative cooling allocations, that doesn't even have its own section. It's just assuming you're going to have an open loop evaporative cooling system. Closed loop cooling. A project proposing closed loop cooling shall submit engineering documentation prepared by a qualified professional engineer confirming the system's design basis, including a design margin of not less than 10% on cooling water demand, that cooling blowdown will be discharged exclusively to the reuse authority's wastewater system under subsection D, item 6, and the basis for any determination that the use of reclaimed water is not technically or economically reasonable, which determination is subject to verification in the review under subsection E4. If the reuse authority makes reclaimed water available for makeup, the applicant shall use such reclaimed water as makeup water in place of potable or groundwater source supply to the extent made available by the reuse authority and technically and economically reasonable. Again, they're imposing limits on closed looped cooling, absolutely nothing on open loop. And again, I feel like they're not understanding that closed loop usually has an open loop cooling system. I don't think they care based on this, but we've told them that. That's been said by more than one person. It's not just me. So it doesn't matter if they're going to use the makeup water or whatever. It's going to evaporate up to 70% of the water in an open loop, depending on the workload and everything. Power generation, fuel supply, energy storage. There's absolutely nothing in the section about whether they're going to pay their own power bill. And it says right here, all on-site fuel storage shall comply with spill prevention control countermeasure requirements of 40 CFR Part 112 and applicable Indiana State Fire Marshal regulations, and all power generation equipment shall be located not less than 100 feet from any lot line of the parcel on which the data center use is located. So that's one of the only chemical controls that they have, the SPCC requirement that only applies to fuel storage. But yeah, your power generator, your backup generators and things can be 100 feet from the adjoining landowner. Water supply agreement. This is where they say indemnification of the reuse authority for claims under Indiana Code 14-25-4 or any successor statute providing a remedy to owners of small capacity wells proportional to the applicant's share of the reuse authority's total data center allocations then in effect. You can't sue them. They're protected if they poison you. They're protected, but you are not. And it says all other commercial and operational terms of the water supply agreement, including rate, service level, curtailment, and default provisions, are determined by the reuse authority in the exercise of its utility functions and are not subject to review. It specifically says anything, It's not subject for review, and anything that isn't spelled out in this section, which is just it's a paragraph, right? It's just a little paragraph. Anything not spelled out there is just up to the reuse authority solely. There's a section here about VRMP design technical standards. So the Vermillion RISE Megapark design technical standards. And it says, upon adoption of the reuse authority and publication on its website of a document titled VRMP design technical standards or successor title, each application under subsection E filed with the effective date of that document and any amendment thereto shall comply with the VRMP design technical standards then in effect. We don't know what the VRMP technical standards, design technical standards document is. And they say when they adopt it, when they adopt this publication that'll be on its website. Why? What is this document? They want the commissioners to sign off on this. And they're referring to a document that doesn't exist, isn't really explained, and it's up to them again. And that's when we get to section E, reuse authority approval, improvement location permit. This is, again, the most important section, in my opinion, of this entire thing. And it speaks, I think, to the intent. This is the problem. It speaks to the actual intentions of the RISE board. It does, because nothing in this, nothing in this is an accident. There's very specific wording in this. Reuse authority approval, improvement location permit. A data center project subject to this section is a permitted use by right within the data center overlay district upon issuance of a written approval by the reuse authority under this subsection confirming compliance with the standards of subsection D and issuance of an improvement location permit by the zoning administrator under subsection 9 and no special exception, variance, rezoning, or discretionary approval by the Plan Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals, or Board of Commissioners is required. They don't require any approval to build a data center. They've said they don't have a proposal right now. They said they don't have a proposal, but they want to make sure that they get this. They want to make sure that they get this put in and adopted by the county, so that they can hear proposals and they can break ground. But when they adopt this, or if they were to adopt this, which we can't let them adopt this. If they were to adopt this, they could do whatever they wanted with the data centers. It's not about protecting us. It's about them getting what they want without any resistance. That's what it says. So there's a thing about a pre-application conference. So this is before a data center applies to build there. Prior to filing an application under this subsection, the applicant shall attend a mandatory pre-application conference with the reuse authority. So the data center companies meet with the RISE board to go over their proposal, but there's no public hearing or presentation at all required. Just the RISE board. Furthermore, the RISE board, they decide whether the permitting is legitimate or legal. Just the RISE board, no one else. Data center companies in their proposals to the RISE board don't have to address who pays for their power, what happens if they don't follow the rules or break promises, environmental impact to wildlife, any of the public's concerns, as this it's a private RISE board meeting only. The job numbers, there's no guarantee whatsoever of job numbers. Again, they say it's about jobs, but there's absolutely no section in here about mandatory jobs for you. And there's nothing about harmful chemicals. They also specifically, when they're talking about completeness, determination, and technical review, It's all the reuse authority shall determine whether an application is complete. The reuse authority only. They know if it's a complete and if it has the required information. They decide what information is required as well, so that's very easy. And then they specifically state Burns and McDonnell as a qualified engineering firm. That just strikes me as weird. Again, I'm not an attorney. They talked about Burns and McDonnell. They gave them hundreds of thousands of dollars, if I recall correctly, and I'm pretty sure I'm right, not that long ago, to do. They said it's like speculative. They're not building anything. They're not doing anything related to data centers, but it looks like they are. It's confusing and it's disappointing. Reuse authority approval. If no written determination is issued within the applicable period, the application shall be deemed approved. So the RISE board receives a proposal for a data center. If they don't do anything, it's automatically approved. I don't know if that's just, I don't know. County commissioner reviews. Within 15 business days after the reuse authority issues or is required to issue an approval or denial under subsection 4, the Board of Commissioners, by resolution adopted at a public meeting, may review that determination. They can, if they want, review that determination solely for consistency with the technical review report delivered under subsection 3. Review under this subsection is limited to the paper record already before the reuse authority. It is not an appeal. It does not modify, extend, or affect any right of appeal or the time to appeal under Indiana Code 36749118.1 or any other applicable law. No new testimony or evidence may be presented. No determination shall be stayed during a review conducted under this subsection. If the Board of Commissioners determines that the reuse authority's determination is inconsistent with the technical review report, the sole remedy is to remand the determination to the reuse authority to conform the determination of the report. Any remand shall specify with particularity the inconsistency to be corrected. If no resolution is adopted within 15 business days, the reuse authority's determination stands. That's a joke. That's a joke. If the commissioners don't like a proposed data center, they can tell the RISE board they don't want it. And then the sole remedy is to let the RISE board decide. Does that sound reasonable? Does that sound like it was an accident? I'm sorry. Vested rights disclaimer. No pre-application conference under subsection 1 completeness determination or deemed completeness under subsection 3 technical review report under subsection 3 or other action taken under this subsection prior to issuance of the reuse authority's written approval under subsection 4 and the improvement location permit under subsection 9 creates any vested right, non-conforming use status, or claim of equitable estoppel. That the pre-application what companies are they already meeting with? What companies have they met with? They don't tell anybody. Fees, technical advisor reimbursement. This is interesting too. The applicant shall pay a reuse authority review fee established by the reuse authority from time to time, just whenever, when we feel like it, to cover the administrative costs of application processing under this subsection, and shall reimburse the reuse authority for its reasonable and actual cost of engaging technical advisors under subsection 3, for the reuse authority's reasonable and actual costs of technical advisor review of post-construction noise verification reports under subsection D, project level hydrogeological studies under subsection D, annual reports under subsection F, in each case attributable to the applicant's or operator's own facility. The reuse authority may require reimbursement for the technical advisors to be deposited into escrow before the review commences, with any unused balance returned to the applicant upon completion of the review. No other fee, exaction, or contribution may be imposed as a condition of the reuse authority's approval under this subsection, except as expressly provided in this section. That means the RISE board will be paid an undisclosed amount for reviewing and dealing with these data center companies. I noticed reading this that there's no one there to oversee that these payments aren't bribes from time to time. If it were me, if I were the RISE board, I would want that to be corrected. I'd want that to be in there to protect me from anyone saying that I was taking a bribe. And they're very sensitive about being told that you think they're taking bribes or they're taking money, but then they leave it like that. I wouldn't want someone to say that I was embezzling or taking bribes or on the take or whatever. But they seem determined to make it look that way. And it's written into their ordinance. No one gets to look them over. There's nothing that says what those costs will be or who can review it. The reuse authority may require it from time to time. Their pockets lined. There's no protection for them either, I guess. There, just financial protection maybe. Then F, ongoing reporting. Annual facility report and reuse authority annex. Each data center facility operating within the data center overlay district shall submit to the reuse authority on or before April 30th of each year. The data center reports to the RISE board only about their water usage, their power usage, their runtime hours, fuel consumption, emissions, summary data, water usage effectiveness, megawatt hours, power usage effectiveness, material changes in on-site chemical inventories. That's the other chemical thing. They have to tell you once a year they have to tell the RISE board what chemicals they have. Battery energy storage systems, generator equipment, and certification by an officer of the reporting entity that the report is complete and accurate. So the data center says, yeah, this is accurate, and the RISE board says, okay, and there's no one checking that. All right. Enforcement. Enforcement. In addition to the enforcement options available under Article 10 of the UDO, and without limiting subsection D is extremely limited, by the way. Zoning administrator may issue a stop work order upon written determination by the reuse authority. Okay, a stop work order for me is, I don't know. That's when there's a really serious issue, stop work, and it needs to be written. It needs to be put in writing. There's no red phone flashing with these guys. It's a letter or a postcard or something. Again, I'm sorry. I'm really frustrated. That a data center project is being constructed or operated in material violation of the standards in subsection D. There are no standards. The standards are so weak. Upon the reuse authority's finding of non-compliance under subsection F, the stop work order shall be limited to the specific violation identified. So they can stop. It's not a full stop order. It's a stop order of their light violation or whatever. Like the whole thing can continue working. That's not really enforceable, I don't think, if it's a noise violation. But you can only stop the noise. Well, you can't stop the noise. You can't stop the noise without running the facility. So that's just, to me, that's an impossible. If I'm understanding that correctly, limited to the specific violation shall be, limited to the specific violation identified by the reuse authority, and shall be lifted upon the reuse authority's determination that the violation has been cured. So they get to decide when it's a problem and when it's not a problem. Each day of continued violation after written notice from the zoning article or from the zoning administrator constitutes a separate violation subject to civil penalties set forth in Article 10 of the UDO, up to and including a penalty of $2,500 a day. These are billion-dollar companies. $2,500 a day is probably like the allowance they give their dog sitter. Okay, this is the cost of doing business. That is not a fine. And I looked it up. In Indiana, the average, like from the state fines are $7,500 a day, and they increase with continued penalizing. But they could just do, okay, well, we're just going to do $2,500 a day. You guys can expect that much from us in fines, and and again, it doesn't determine what the violation is. It could be all of the violations. This is so vague and so weak. $2,500 a day. Nothing in this subsection limits the reuse authority's ability to seek any other remedy available under the applicable water supply agreement, ground lease, or other contractual arrangement with the applicant, or the enforcement options available under Article 10 of the UDO. Okay, so other remedy. Only the RISE board has the ability to seek damages above and beyond the $2,500, and there's not a single provision for private citizens. I mean, it's not there. So we've gone through now the entire ordinance, and I will post it. I'm gonna try to find a way to post it on Facebook. I'm gonna, I guess, change every page into a JPEG and just do a post. But I'm honestly concerned about whether or not this is even legal to begin with, because I looked into this when the rumor was that they were going to try to bypass the APC, and what I concluded was that it was not, that there were state statutes that specifically spell this out, and a county can't override a state statute. I mean, they're the ones that require for developments to go through the area planning commission. I mean, that is a state mandated process, which they seem to be flying in the face of. Now, other counties do this, like, especially rural counties. They've had, people that, were bold and thought, they're operating in a legal gray area. They're going to take the risk. And if it's, hey, if they adopt it, then, there it is. But we're not going to do that. We'll look at judicial review or something. I don't know, but I don't know if that's legal. I don't know if anything in this is really legal, especially that Section E, putting everything and all oversight and stuff on the reuse on the RISE board. And again, it really speaks to the character of the RISE board that they would even put that in there. I don't think they're up to any good if they're like, we don't want anybody to see what we're doing, know what we're doing. You're just going to have to trust us. Well, I don't. Not anymore. Not a bit. And I don't know, I'm trying not to put my foot in my mouth here and say something that I'll regret. I certainly don't want to get sued, but something's rotten in Denmark. I'll say that. So the commissioners meeting, that's on Monday, August 3rd at 6 p.m. in the Newport Courthouse in Newport, Indiana. There are people who've joked about this, or they seem kind of on the fence about this, or they don't think that the data center is going to be that big of a deal, or they think it's inevitable. If you think it's inevitable and it's going to be built, that's fine, but you'd want protections, and there are none. They're trying to make sure that we have no protections by putting it in this ordinance. And I'm really worried, even though it would be extremely foolish, extraordinarily foolish for a commissioner, a county commissioner to approve of this and send this on to the APC. We've gotten to the point now where I can't, and this is a part of why I'm so upset. I can't count on human decency anymore. I can't count on people to do the moral or correct thing or the righteous thing. And it makes me question where the heart of our leaders are. So if by any chance one of our commissioners or all of our commissioners are watching this, and I hope they would. I would hope they would watch this because I put in a lot of time and I really care. I hope they really, really reconsider even looking at this and thinking about it for a second. Because if they put all these protections toward nothing gets to happen to them if they hurt us, but nothing to prevent hurting us, there is nothing in here that's an oversight. This isn't an oversight. The language is extremely, extremely specific and deliberate. Anybody that cares about Vermillion County that is able to make it there. I understand some people can't make it there. Anybody that cares about Vermillion County, I'm asking you please to show up on Monday, August 3rd, 6 p.m. at the Newport Courthouse. We need to be heard. We need to show up. We need to speak calmly. We need to, speak with passion, but we need to show up and just be assertive and make sure that we're heard. I don't want it to turn into an ugly situation, but this is incredibly consequential for us. We're counting on our elected officials to represent us. Now more than ever, they need to do the job that they were elected to do. Because this ordinance is unacceptable. It's unacceptable. And that's all I have to say. So thank you for sticking around. I hope that this was educational.